And it's time now for Flashback, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. And we begin on Monday, where the Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Pate, called for a gradual end to the country's dependence on foreign aid in funding its response to HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria. He said this at an investigative hearing by the House of Reps Committee on Infectious Diseases into the over $4.6 billion in grants received from the Global Fund and USAID between 2021 and 2025.
Between 2021 and 2025, Nigeria received no less than $4.6 billion in grants from the Global Fund and the USAID to fight HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. The House is concerned that despite the huge investments, Nigeria continues to rank among nations with the highest burden of these diseases. Lawmakers say inquiry will determine how the funds were managed and ensure that all implementing partners fully account for the resources received.
Any grants or assistance being given to us without us managing such grants is unacceptable. We must assert our capacity to take charge of our affairs.
We will ensure that all proceedings are open, fair, and accessible to the public with channels for citizen participation and scrutiny.
The minister views the probe as a welcome step toward transparency, accountability, and domestic ownership of health programs. He says the country must take greater responsibility for financing its health priorities as donor funding declines after 2 decades of support. While he acknowledges that donor assistance has saved millions of lives through HIV, TB, and malaria interventions, the minister insists Nigeria's health spending remains below the 15% Abuja Declaration target. He warns that underfunding threatens sustainability.
The 20 years of global health financing that we have enjoyed as a country is coming to an end.
The probe aims to produce an evidence-based report on how the grants were received and utilized, as well as their impact on public health, while strengthening accountability and governance in the sector.
And still in the week under review, on Tuesday, Minister of the FCT, Wike, and officials of the FCTA had a face-off with some military personnel who attempted to stop the minister and his entourage from gaining access to a land in the Gwadua district in Abuja. The FCT minister and his team arrived at the site to find some armed soldiers standing guard, blocking access. The minister questioned the soldiers' actions, emphasizing that no one is above the law and that the country cannot operate with impunity.
Departments and the development control have been mandated to see where there are illegal development going on and land grabbing. And when this was brought to my attention, I did instruct them to make sure that nothing takes place in as much as they did not have any legal paper in terms of building approval or even the acquisition of the land. And when they came here, I was informed that the soldier of the military had to chase them away.
And following that development, reactions trailed the altercation between a naval officer and the Minister of the FCT on Wednesday. Minister of Defense Mohammed Badaru assures that the Ministry of Defense will protect any officer on lawful duty.
It's a ceremony marking the formal commencement of activities to mark the 2026 Armed Forces and Remembrance Day.
To launch today,
the Minister of Defense highlights activities of the Armed Forces and events lined up for the occasion.
Nigerians can now write tribute to fallen heroes and say thank you for all their efforts in keeping the nation safe. They can also thank serving officers who they see have distinguished themselves in the service of the nation.
But the focus soon shifts to a recent altercation between a naval officer and Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, over access to a parcel of property allegedly belonging to a former chief of naval staff.
I'm not a fool.
If any officer on lawful duty be protected, I will not have anything to contend. Lawful duty, doing his job, and doing his job credibly well.
The incident continues to generate reactions, pitting analysts who are for and against the parties involved in the matter.
And on Thursday, the Senate passed a major reform bill with provisions that clarify command structures and ensure the armed forces operate fully within constitutional boundaries. The Armed Forces Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2025 proposes a complete modernization of the Armed Forces Act to reflect current security realities.
Nigeria's armed forces are widely regarded as the backbone of national sovereignty. But the legal framework guiding their operation remains rooted in a military decree from 1960s, last consolidated more than 20 years ago. Presenting the bill on the Senate floor, Senator Abdulaziz Musa Yar'Adua says the outdated law no longer reflects today's complex defense environment, especially as the military continues to confront insurgency, terrorism, and regional peacekeeping demands.
Many democracies, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, including the United States, United Kingdom, and South Africa, have modernized their military laws to ensure justice, accountability, and professionalism. Nigeria cannot afford to lag behind.
Wednesday's debate also mirrored public concerns from recent confrontations between FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and a military officer, an incident that reignited questions about professionalism, discipline, and clear lines of authority within the armed forces.
Authority of democratically elected institutions so that they cannot be masters of themselves.
And we spend a lot of money training these military people. I want, in amending this law, I want them to bring at any time the commander-in-chief wants to appoint a chief of army staff, chief of naval staff, you should go by their courses.
In line with international obligations, the bill prohibits the recruitment of anyone below 18 years, aligning the armed forces with global humanitarian standards. It also empowers trained military lawyers to represent the institution in civil courts, cutting costs and reducing delays. To deepen scrutiny, the Senate has referred the bill to a joint committee on Defense, Army, Air Force, and Navy, with directives to report back in 4 weeks.
And on Friday, leaders of the All Progressives Congress from wards, local government areas, and state level, led by the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, endorsed President Bola Tinubu as their consensus candidate for the 2027 general election. And they insist Zamfara State remains a stronghold of the APC and a home for President Tinubu.
The Gusau-Safi Road came alive and activities grounded as the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, and his entourage stormed Gusau, the capital city of Zamfara, for a stakeholders meeting aimed at strengthening the party. The APC leader in Zamfara, who doubles as the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, says the party, in agreement with its leaders at all levels, has adopted President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as its consensus candidate for the 2027 presidential election. The party leaders and other chieftains, according to the minister, have signed and agreed to the terms.
After careful consideration of the remarkable achievement of the current administration under the focus and visionary leadership of Your Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GZFR, particularly in the areas of economic reform, the Zamfara APC unanimously endorsed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as President for the second term in office in 2027. The endorsement is duly signed by undersigned party leaders and the stakeholders. Subsequently, stakeholders across all 40 local government areas in the state initiated further validation of this resolution.
Other party chieftains commend the Tinubu administration for delivering the dividend of democracy to the people.
APC is united in Zamfara. Zamfara state belongs to APC. We thank Almighty Allah for seeing this very important day. Motowale, as a leader, as a minister, we really appreciate his effort towards uniting the people of APC.
That people will continue to give them cooperation. Security is for everybody. Without cooperation of the people, you can't achieve the full security as you want. So I call on our people to give them maximum cooperation.
They reaffirmed their loyalty and support to the Tinubu administration, and prayers were also said for the president to succeed and a quick end to insecurity affecting the northern region.